Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second webinar in our 2023-24 Dual Credit in Kentucky series. My name is Robin Hebert, and I'm with the K-12 Policies and Programs Unit here at the Council on Post-Secondary Education. I'm joined today by my CPE colleague, Trinity Walsh. Later in our broadcast, you'll hear from Trinity as she shares the data and resource moment related to our topic for today, which is improving advising, eliminating random acts of dual credit. Let me share my screen there. Since our last time together in September, Kentucky has launched the Dual Credit Community of Practice. And this is an all-volunteer group of practitioners who are committed to improving outcomes and processes related to dual credit. At the kickoff meeting in September, the group identified problems of practice in Kentucky's dual credit ecosystem, and they formed work groups to investigate and improve outcomes in each area over the next school year. It's exciting work. Be watching for updates and resources from this very promising group. Today's guests are involved in this work, and they all have extensive knowledge and experience in the dual credit world. Kristen Hornsby is the Associate Director for School-Based Scholars and Articulation Agreements at Northern Kentucky University. Aaron Baker is the Associate Director of Dual Credit and Transition Services at Eastern Kentucky University. And our very own Dr. Beth Collins is the Associate Director of the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative here at CPE. So we are so happy to have all of these guests with us today. And without further delay, I'm happy to welcome Kristen, Aaron, and Beth into today's panel discussion. So welcome, everyone. Today's format will be a little bit different in that we will discuss the topics as a panel. So please feel free to just hop into the conversation at any time. So I want to start today with a little level setting, and I'd love to hear from each one of you on this opening question, which is, when I say the words meaningful dual credit, what comes to mind for you?
Thanks, Robin. I guess I'll go first. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. And one of the first things that comes to mind as soon as I hear meaningful dual credit is that a student has had an opportunity to explore what their intended major may be and their future career plans. And then they strategically align the courses that they are taking in their dual credit offerings to go down the pathway, to make it more seamless and to reduce the number of credits that they may take that are not fitting into the pathway for them in their future.
Awesome.
Thanks. I'll jump in. Thank you, Robin, for having us this morning. I have to agree with Beth. To me, meaningful dual credit generally means that students are thoughtful in their course selection, choosing courses that are applicable to their degree and to their high school requirements. You know, what we don't want is students randomly choosing courses that sound interesting, but without thought to whether that course is applicable to the degree. I also think that exploration of majors by trying courses either in a CTE pathway or an intro-level major course can be both meaningful and beneficial, because earlier, as Beth was saying, that a student can figure out what it is they want to major in and what school they want to attend, then the better informed decisions they can make.
So thank you.
Absolutely agree. And to piggyback off of that, dual credit is also an exciting opportunity for dual credit students to not only explore the majors that they could be interested in and take time off the degrees that the majors that they are wanting to pursue after high school graduation, but it's also an opportunity to take more rigorous coursework while still in high school and satisfy high school requirements. And I think that's a big focus on meaningful dual credit, is ensuring that students are enrolling in dual credit courses that are not only satisfying requirements towards their post-secondary major and general education requirements, but also high school graduation requirements.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. You know, meaningful dual credit, 3 simple words, but there's a lot behind those words and what we mean. So we know that vocabulary is just really important when we're having these conversations. We use a lot of education-ese sometimes when we talk about this. And, you know, we use words like programs and pathways and sequencing and majors and non-majors. Sometimes I wonder, number one, if we all mean the same thing when we talk about these terms. And secondly, if our key stakeholders, especially students and parents, really know what we mean by the words that we use. So I'm wondering, just to kind of start our conversation today, what terms do you think need some clarification or firming up so that we really have common definitions around these conversations? And also, how can we be sure that we've communicated all of that effectively to our students and parents who are trying to navigate these systems?
Well, we've already used one term a couple of times, and that is pathways.
Yeah.
It gets used a lot. There are many different types of pathways. In general, they are all something that gets students from point A to point B. But in my own work, there are generally 3 types of pathways that I am involved with. And so I try to be very intentional in my word choice and to be consistent so that everyone knows what I'm talking about. So of course, there are the CTE pathways that the high schools are utilizing. There are transfer pathways that outline the courses to get both an associate and a bachelor's degree. And then for school-based scholars students, we have career exploration tracks, which are advising tools that our dual credit students use to explore a major. So that's sort of, I try to think about the terms that I can use to sort of further define and just be consistent.
Thanks, Kristen.
So she stole mine. I was going to say pathways. That is the definite one. Thank you for that, Kristen, because you did it so much better than I would have said it, I'm certain. And I want to kind of think about that a little larger too, Robin, and maybe challenge us to think about how to connect not only the definitions and the level setting, but also help folks understand how that fits into things that will be crucial for student success moving forward. Like, how does pathways equate to financial aid, and how does that really fit into like program applicability for courses? And you know, if we're not in the education space all the time and the alphabet soup's everywhere, I feel like we might be doing an injustice if we don't make some of those connections as well. So I just want to have our group in this conversation think about that and help folks, especially families who potentially it's a first generation college student who really doesn't even understand what all financial aid is available to them. So it is a very large conversation, and I appreciate you bringing it up for sure.
Yeah, it is. So I'm wondering, especially for Kristen and Aaron, what are some of the ways that you work to make sure that students and their parents really do understand some of this vocabulary, what Beth called the alphabet soup?
I think a lot of it starts with communication and transparency. You know, we have to be very intentional about when and how we're communicating that information to students, to parents, to school counselors, to any stakeholders in dual credit. You know, we have to make sure that they're understanding what kind of pathway we're talking about when we're talking about it, what actually goes involved in the pathway, you know, what it's for, whether it's a transfer pathway, whether it's a pathway into a specific program, whether it's a CTE work ready pathway. We have to be transparent in what we're talking about. We have to make sure that it's being communicated to the student, to the parent, to everybody involved. And so, I mean, that begins, like I was saying, with making sure that we are talking early to them and often to them.
Thanks, Aaron.
100% agree with what Aaron just said. I think that communication piece is key. I think that consistency of terminology is key. And also just being aware that these are students who may have no college experience, their families might not have college experience. So just making sure that we are being clear in how we are using the words. We also have a document that lays out a lot of college terminology that we share with students in our orientation, just so that from the get-go, they have a resource that they can refer back to if they're wondering, what is a pathway? What is a credit hour? Anything like that. Just to make sure that they all have a basis to refer back to.
Absolutely. The orientation is a fantastic opportunity to do that. Using communication plans is another way to make sure that students and other stakeholders are staying informed. And then also just having those resources available via websites and in communicating them to stakeholders in the high schools as partnerships are forming and partnerships are continuing. Kristen, you said it perfectly: consistency.
Yeah. Well, I know that you both work directly with students and parents in your roles, and I'm talking specifically to Kristen and Aaron right now. So I've heard a lot of intentionality in what you're saying about early and often, and you've got some protocols and you've got some plans and you've got some handouts or lists of terms. So I'd like to hear just a little bit more about what is intentionally built into your process for communicating with parents and with students and with your high schools that you partner with. So Aaron, let's start with you. Let's hear just a little bit about EKU's process. And then Kristen, I'm going to follow up with you to see what you would add from NKU's perspective.
Awesome. I'm happy to start. And so we kind of break it down to the specific stakeholder. And so what I mean by that is that we have communication plans, we have ways that we inform our stakeholders depending on who they are and what it is, how they are involved in dual credit. And so for the student, from the moment that they are interested in EKU dual credit, we begin the conversation with them via email, via text message, via our website, and via their school. And so after they've been identified, they are included in communication plans that we have designed within our office to prepare them with our academic policies, our deadlines, our responsibilities of students, the rights of college students, and in the things that they can benefit from, not only as being a dual credit student, but also being a student at EKU. And that continues throughout the semester and throughout their time as a student at EKU. After they're admitted, they go through an EKU orientation. It's done virtually. And so again, it's preparing them and keeping them informed about everything that they need to do and need to know as a dual credit student. For our guidance counselors, we have a very similar communication plan. It's a little bit higher level, and it's going to involve everything that we need from them, they need from us, etc. We do everything that we can during the onboarding process with our guidance counselors and school counselors and school administrator partners to making sure that they are aware of everything that their students need to be successful in the dual credit program here at EKU. And that doesn't stop with them. We also work with our dual credit students' parents and guardians specifically as well, including them in our communication plans, including them in how we communicate, when we communicate, so that our students have the support systems necessary to begin and continue in EKU dual credit successfully.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. I love how you talk about helping these students feel like they are EKU students, even if they're not necessarily on campuses or taking their coursework. I've heard a lot of conversations about how important that is for them to really feel like a college student, because that's what they are, as they're
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, they're as much as college students as our undergraduate students. And it's important for dual credit students to understand that, not only to give them that motivation to continue in dual credit because it is something special that they're involved with, but also to give them that sense of urgency behind the coursework, because dual credit is rigorous coursework and it's going to be challenging for the student. And they must understand that it's not just high school credit that they're earning college credit, and they have to be able to step up to the challenge of that credit to be meaningful dual credit.
Thanks, Aaron. Kristen, what would you add? What else happens at NKU?
Sure. So our process is very similar. Since Aaron gave us a nice broad scope, I'll kind of jump in and focus in on a little segment of that. So we have 1,500 students in our program, and there are only 2 staff members. So yes, we do have to be very intentional in how we are supporting this process. Particularly with advising and registration, we do partner with our campus advising hub. They have a special populations advisor. So we encourage students to meet with him so that they can get more personalized advising. But we also provide advising resources to students, to counselors to help assist in students selecting their courses. So these include a general education checklist, a list of course suggestions by major, our career exploration tracks. These tracks are advising tools that help students complete a semester's worth of inter-level coursework for a specific major or minor. So when you have such a big group of students to so few staff. We just do have to be very intentional, make sure that we have resources that people can utilize on their own, but then also provide those opportunities for more personalized interaction and support.
Yeah, Kristen, I appreciate you calling out about the number of students you have and the number of staff that you have to serve them. That is a like a refrain that we keep hearing around dual credit work and being efficient, but also being able to make sure that students and parents get the information they need. I mean, so important on both sides of that. Beth, I know that you've worked in high schools, post-secondary institutions, and now perspective at the state agency. You've got a broad, kind of 30,000 foot look at the system. So I wanted to ask about the communication piece that Kristen and Aaron are talking about and, kind of what you see there. But I really also wanted to ask your perspective about the benefits versus the challenges of dual credit. Like, despite the challenge, I know that there are benefits for students for taking dual credit. And what do you wish would happen so that this experience is better for students and for their institutions?
Yes, that's a great question, Robin. It has been a privilege to see this process of education from literally preschool all the way through career and beyond, skilling up a second time. And as I think about this a little bit, it makes me just want to kind of remind everybody to pause and remember that we're really talking about 16, 17, 18-year-old students who are still learning who they are and what they want for their own lives and what interests them. And it's a big world and there's a lot out there. And so communication is key. And I can't stress enough the importance of engaging with the family. Students will lean into their parents or into their grandparents, to that trusted adult who's been the consistent. And so having that good partner with their first educator, it's just imperative. I mean, it is truly imperative. And then also having that good communication from the university or KCTCS, wherever the dual credit is coming from, to the school counselor, also to the parent, making time for that, making time to have parents ask their questions as well. And so how does that all snowball into having this good pathway and these good transfer frameworks that we want students to do and select these right courses? And so helping the student really decide where their major is, their major interest would be, and then selecting a school, because there's all kinds of dual credit out there, right? There's all kinds of opportunity. And so when you think about where the students can pull from, if a student knows earlier where they wish to pursue, obviously that's where we would encourage them to take their dual credit courses. Who better to help them go to the college they want to go to than their own college advisor who they're going to see long term. And there's so many courses available to students, especially in like arts and humanities and histories, that one option may be the student's interest and we want them to pursue that. But we also, like Kristen said earlier, we want to make sure it fits appropriately into their actual major and their pathway. That's just so important. This dual credit opportunity of starting earlier and cutting the time that a student may spend money to go to college, and actually that's very beneficial to the family. I just want to speak a little bit about how there really is dual credit for everyone. So many times we get lost in the shuffle of college readiness, and there's this high stakes accountability for that. And I'm not trying to undermine that at all. But there's opportunities for all students, even if they've not hit the benchmarks that we would like for them to have. They certainly can take an arts course or a humanities course that do not have an entry-level test score, and it gets them in the pathway. It gets their interest. It's a momentum builder. It's a fire starter. They're taking this course with their peers, so they've got their own natural cohorting. They have a support system for that social, emotional piece that they so desperately need as they transition from the high school into young adulthood. So I can't speak to that enough as to how important that is. And I also want to remind folks that, as Aaron said, dual credit is college credit. It impacts GPA. It impacts their financial aid eligibility. It is so essential for folks to understand that dual credit needs to be intentional, and that there are going to be times that a student may not get to go with their friends to do something because the course they're enrolled in requires all this extra study time that they may or may not be used to. And so that's the best communication piece and insight into what would be the really best way for choosing dual credit coursework, Robin.
All right. Thanks, Beth. I can hear a lot of passion in your voice about this topic. Um, before we leave this question, I want to go back to Aaron and Kristen, and I'm thinking especially about communication with counselors at your partner high schools, but you don't have to limit it to this question, to the, to that group. But I'm curious, if you could wave a magic wand and you could change one thing or improve one thing about eliminating random acts of dual credit and making sure that dual credit courses are meaningful for students, what would you do? One thing.
I don't know if I would change it because some schools are already doing this. But I would encourage counselors, other high school support staff to just really acknowledge, lean in onto the fact that they know their students better than we do. They've worked with them for a few years. We're just meeting them. So y'all know what courses are going to meet their high school needs. You know what might set them up for success or not, because the consequences and the rewards of dual credit are twofold. They're going to affect both the high school and the college level. So we really rely on the counselors to help us set the students up for success. And so I would just maybe not change, but encourage them to lean into that even more and know that we need you, we appreciate you, and let's keep going.
Awesome. Thanks, Kristen.
Exactly, Kristen. I wouldn't want to change, but I definitely improve the advising of dual credit students, and that begins working with the counselors, working with the school administrators, working with the students specifically to make sure that they are enrolling in courses that are going to take time off the degree, but also satisfy those high school graduation requirements, and courses that are appropriate for the student. We want to make sure that our students are enrolling in courses that are going to be that are going to meet what their capabilities are going to prepare them for the future, and are going to help them get into more rigorous coursework later on in their program. And so working with improving our advising with our counselor partners to ensure that students are enrolling in the right courses, enrolling in courses that are going to either take time off the degree program at the institution that they're going to go to and taking dual credit at, or are going to transfer 1-for-1 to the institution that they're going to go to after high school graduation. Unfortunately, we see that more often than I would really like to see, is that students are taking classes and they're taking specific classes that may not transfer and may only count as elective hours. And so being cognizant of that as students are making decisions of where they're going to go after high school graduation is so very important. And it is really up to our counselor partners to help us have that conversation with the student, because as Kristen said, the counselors know the students best. We're here to help. We're here to provide the resources that we can provide to advise students, to show them the requirements for programs, to help them be successful. But again, it is up to the counselor to also help us help the students make those decisions that are appropriate for them.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, we're getting close on time. So I've got one really quick question, and then I'm going to give you all a chance to leave us with some final words. One question that our participants on the webinars always want to know is, from your all's vantage point, what are your go-to resources? So I'm going to ask you all each to name one resource that is kind of a go-to that you couldn't do without in the work that you do in advising students well. Am I going to have to call in a volunteer? Aaron, do you want to go ahead and go first? Okay.
Yeah, of course. So I'm happy to go ahead and chat through this a little bit. Here at EKU, all of our students are not only assigned an academic advisor, but they're also given contact information for all of us here in the Dual Credit and Transition Services unit who are experts in dual credit, but also experts in transfer work. And so that would be a really good thing for me, or something for me to point out, is the resources that are available to students in the people that they can work with. kind of along the same vein is the resources that we're using in the dual credit and transition services unit include program pathways or program curriculum guides that are produced by EKU that really map out all the requirements that are needed for specific programs. We also have that for general education requirements and all the courses that we offer at EKU that satisfy them. And so that would probably be my number one resource that I love to use, that I always encourage the people that are on my team. And then something that I always reference to our dual credit students and our counselor partners to reference and use as an advising resource for dual credit students when it comes times to make decisions on what they want to register for. One, so they can see what they're going to be taking and how it applies. And two, that way they can make a better decision on what it is that they want to actually enroll in and what actually sounds interesting to them. They can explore the different requirements for programs that they may be interested in. It's all mapped out right there.
Thanks, Aaron. You know, we hear a lot of times that students are sometimes hesitant to reach out to other human beings on campus. And so I really appreciate you calling that out and how we adults can kind of point them in that direction and give them confidence about reaching out to a person who has a whole list of resources behind them, you know, within your department. So thank you for that. Kristen, how about you? What go-to resource?
Well, I would like to share two, one for students and one for administrators.
Okay. All right. I'll let you break the rules. That's fine.
Okay. For students, I would say your faculty member. Talk to your faculty members. So many questions, problems could be resolved if students would just talk to their faculty member. Obviously, our office is here to help as well, and the school counselor. But I think the faculty member should be the first stop for students when they have questions and concerns. And then if you are a counselor or a dual credit administrator, use your regional partners. Here in Northern Kentucky, we have a great group from NKU, from Gateway, from Thomas More. And if we have questions, we're trying to brainstorm, you know, just run a problem, you know, by each other, there's a great support resource and people who have, you know, been in the same boat and experienced a lot of the same things. So lean in on your regional partners for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. As I've started meeting so many regional partners, I have found what you said to be really true. Everybody's trying to solve similar problems and are really eager to partner and collaborate. Yeah, thank you for that. Beth, how about you? Go-to resource.
So my go-to resource is my colleagues, right? So part of what I do with transfer initiatives and through the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative is strengthen those partnerships and serve as the backbone support that the institutions need to really accelerate efforts for their students. And so my go-to is leaning into partnership and collaboration and finding ways and means to support those who are closest to the students to do their job better, easier, more effectively, and to do all that they can for the students. So it's a little different view from here, but that's my go-to.
Yeah. I thank you all for sharing those resources. I'm a little bit surprised about how all of you mentioned human resources first, and just the person-to-person communication and support that's available. And sometimes that's kind of the last thing that students, you know, will raise their hand for. So we need to work together to figure out better ways to get students to actually make that call or send that email or make that contact with the human who can actually help them solve the problem. All right. Well, I want to wrap things up now. We got to get to Trinity for our data moment, but I always like to end with final words. Anything that you would have, I want to go back to our topic for today, which is improving advising and eliminate random acts of dual credit. What final words of advice would you have for students, parents, high school partners, or post-secondary partners? And Beth, I want to especially ask you to mention important things that students should know about pathways and transferability when it comes to dual credit coursework. Okay, so I'll give each of you a moment for final words. Let's see, Aaron, you went first last time. Kristen, I'm going to start with you this time. Beth, I'm going to give you a minute because you got to really think about the specificity of the question. So Kristen, we'll go to you, then Aaron, and then Beth, you take us home.
Great. Well, one thing we didn't really touch on today, and honestly, I could spend a whole nother session talking about it, but I'll just touch on it here.
Well, add to our list, Kristen. Okay.
So if students are taking a lot of courses without consideration for how those courses are going to apply to the degree, they are at a risk of having surplus electives. And so if you're building a lot of, say, general education credit, but little to no intro level major work, you may find scheduling conflicts when you do transition to the university for full time, because a lot of majors have courses that are sequenced. So, we talk about one of the benefits of dual credit being you might get a semester's worth of classes under your belt, you might get ahead and be able to graduate early, but that's only if you're being intentional. So, for counselors, for students, just pay attention to your area of interest so that you aren't putting yourself in a situation where, because of sequencing, you are having to extend your time to degree. Intentionality, it's the word for the day.
It is. Thanks, Kristen.
With intentionality, I'd like to add collaboration. It's key for success of our dual credit students, for not only the students to collaborate with their counselors, but also to collaborate with their parents and guardians, and collaborate with us at the higher ed institutions to make sure that our students are enrolling in rigorous courses that are appropriate for them, are enrolling in courses that are going to take time off the degree and actually satisfy requirements in a correct sequence that is going to help them after high school graduation. And so I'd like just to say to everyone on the webinar here, if you are a counselor, if you are a school administrator, if you're a parent, if you're a student, if you're anybody involved in dual credit and you have a question concerning dual credit, if you have a question concerning advising how this course is going to take time off the degree, how this course is going to transfer, reach out. We are absolutely always willing to help. We're here to answer any questions you have. If there's anything that we can do better to be more transparent, to communicate better, to communicate more often, let us know. We're only humans. We can do better. We can be better. We can help, and we're always happy to do so.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, Beth, we're going to pitch you the ball.
Really can be said very simply, Robin, begin with the end in mind, right? And so building on what
Uh-oh. I'm afraid that we've...
Oh, I'm so sorry.
We lost you for a second, Beth.
Oh, technology in the mountains, right?
We heard you say begin with the end in mind, and then we lost you.
Yes, you have to begin with the end in mind. And that speaks to the transferability and how it fits into the major. So if a student is fortunate enough to kind of already know where they want to land, and then they have these good, rich conversations with parents and their school counselor and their college advisor, and they know that they want to eventually become this career path or this in this major, then the courses they can take, they can make sure that they are meeting not only the high school needs, but they also transfer into the major as they hope that they do, that it doesn't become an elective, that it is actually a major course. And so it is about strategy. It is about an honest early planning system. It is about exploring your interest as a student and also your future career paths. It's about engagement with all those key stakeholders at very specific times, and simply saying it just for the students and putting it as simply as we want to speak to our students. Think about where you want to be in 10 years, and let's figure out how to get you there.
Oh, love it. Love it. All right. So I heard intentionality. I heard collaboration, reach out. Aaron, I heard you say model this for your students. If you're a faculty member at a high school, reach out to the post-secondary partner, model that, reach out for your students. And then honest early planning with a strategy. Thank you, Beth, for just reminding us. You need to have that end in mind, where you want to go as a student. And to be really intentional about getting there. I cannot thank you three enough for being our panelists today. What great information you've shared. I'm going to turn things over now to Trinity, who's going to take us home with the data moment. So thank you again for being with us today.
Well, hello and good morning. This month's data moment is going to be a little different, and I'm actually going to call it a data and resource moment. Data is information such as facts and numbers that we use to analyze something or make decisions. And so this month, I'm going to showcase some information that will hopefully help you to design materials for your students, families, and yourself to help them make better informed decisions about their early post-secondary opportunities. I'm going to start with KCTCS. While they're not on our webinar today, they have a wide variety of pathway resources that will help you and your students to make informed decisions about courses they could and should be taking at the high school level and that align with their future post-secondary path. Next, I'm going to talk about NKU. NKU offers a robust list of career pathways, career exploration tracks. Sorry, Kristen, used the wrong terminology. Career exploration tracks that align to their majors and students' high school pathways. These courses are a part of that sequence that Kristen was mentioning. And these courses can be taken on campus, online, or at the student's high school. It all depends on the agreement that you have with NKU. So if this is something that you might be interested in, I would encourage you to reach out to Kristen. EKU is currently developing career exploration tracks, and these are coming soon. So you have the opportunity today to get a sneak peek of one of their first ones, their aviation pathway here. Erin shared this with me just yesterday. And so look for more information like this coming from EKU, because I think this can really help you when you are helping students to align and pick the correct dual credit courses that they need. Lastly, I want to show you a tool that I developed when I was a high school counselor. It took a lot of time and effort, I'm not going to lie. But once I developed it, it saved so much time for my students, families, and myself during the scheduling process. I updated this tool each year, but the time it spent on the front end saved me lots of time on the back end when it came to being able to more appropriately advise my students. I began with popular career clusters for our students, and then from there, I broke it down to popular career majors within those clusters. Clearly, these aren't all the majors that are available, but these were some of the most popular ones for our students, so it was helpful for us. All of these resources are going to be shared with you on our EPSO Toolkit professional development page. So if you haven't taken any time to look at that, please do so. Check out all of the resources and materials we've curated over the last year. And if there's something you think we should be adding or something that's missing, please let us know. We also want to advise you about the Kentucky Advising Academy Toolkit. And it also has a plethora of excellent resources and materials that will help you in your post-secondary advising practice. So check those guys out too. We want to thank all of our amazing guests today: Beth Collins from CPE, Kristen Hornby from NKU, and Erin Baker from EKU. And we're looking forward to seeing you at our next webinar on Tuesday, November 7th at 10 a.m. We're aware it's election day, but we're hoping that means you might have a little more time to tune in. It's going to be a great one, focusing on preparing for early post-secondary opportunities in the middle grades. Just like Erin mentioned before, talking to students and families early and often is so very important. So if you have some middle school administrators, school counselors, advisors, or teachers, let them know about this webinar because it's targeted at that population of students. And finally, stay connected with us on Twitter, check out our data center, and subscribe to our CPE newsletter. We want to stay connected with you. Hope this webinar was helpful in finding ways to inform your students and families and ways to have a better course alignment and eliminate those random acts of dual credit. Have a great day and an even better October.